Turn your microphones on and pull them forward and we'll get started. Welcome to the March 28th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Gold.
Present.
Mr. Screbutennis.
Here.
Mr. Khan.
Mr. Khan just texted Laura and he said he'd be a couple minutes late, so we're going to start without him, but we expect him in a couple of moments.
Okay, Mr. McPartlin.
Here.
Mr. Darpino.
Here.
Ms. Shenfield.
Here.
Ms. Strang.
Here.
Chairman Walsh.
Here. Okay, before we get started, I'd like to welcome Ms. Strang, our new alternate member to the planning board. If anybody hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves, we'll have a short meeting tonight. Maybe you can say hello to her. So welcome aboard.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad to have you.
Thank you.
And we'll all be here to help you out, of course. All right, so first up, we have the approval of the minutes from the March 14th, 2022 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Scributennis for adoption. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McPartlin. Any changes, questions, comments on the minutes? I have none. Anybody? No?
Excuse me, Kevin, did I call Daisy? Did I call you Daisy?
Yes, you did.
You did.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Yep.
And let the record reflect that Mr. Khan is here. So we have a motion and a second on the minutes. I'll give Mr. Khan a moment to sit down, so we'll take his vote on the minutes also. No problem. Did you have any comments on the minutes at all? I did not. Okay, we have a motion and second and no comments at all. All those in favor of approval of the minutes from the March 14th meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, hearing none opposed, I will approve those minutes. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move the privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning and zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. I don't know if you have anything for privilege of the floor. I know you're with a project tonight. You okay? We'll talk during the project. Laura, you have any phone calls or emails or letters?
I don't have any emails or letters.
And nobody online. I don't see anybody. Okay, so hearing or seeing no one for privilege of the floor, we'll move on. No unfinished business tonight. And under new business, we have one resolution, Resolution 2022-08, a resolution for site plan approval of an extension of the approved site plan, which is Resolution 2020-12, for the construction of an 890 square foot addition at 2764 Troye Road. That's the Niskayuna Animal Hospital. The resolution was posted to the website. I'm just going to summarize the changes to the original resolution which are going to allow this extension if we approve it. Resolved that this Planning Board and Zoning Commission does grant extension to the site plan approval for the site plan of the map entitled Site Layout Plan, Building and Parking Lot Expansion, Animal Hospital of Niskayuna, prepared by CT Mail Associates on February 5th, 2020, and last revised on February 19th, 2020, with the following conditions. I'll just read the new conditions, which was number 5, per Niskayuna Town Code, Section 2020-48E, final site plan approval shall expire 2 years after the date of this written final approval of the Planning Board, unless construction in accordance with the approved plan has begun or an additional extension of time has been granted by the Planning Board. An approved building permit is required to begin construction. To facilitate timely completion of the project addition, the following milestones shall be met to demonstrate appropriate progression of the design and approval phases of the project. A, 6 months from the date of this resolution, a design consultant shall be under contract and all existing site and existing building conditions drawn up, including the proposed footprint of the addition. B, 12 months from the date of this resolution, initial plans showing design options, including site plans, floor plans, and elevations shall be submitted to the planning office and architectural review board for review. C, 18 months after the date of this resolution, plans shall be finalized and formalized, and a formalized set of project plans shall be provided to the planning office. And D, 24 months from the date of this resolution, as noted above, a building permit shall be submitted and approved, and construction in accordance with the approved plan and building permit shall have been started, or an additional extension of time shall have to be requested from the planning board. Mr. Diapino, do I have a motion?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Move for adoption by Mr. Diapino. Do I have a second? Second by Ms. Gold. And discussion. David?
Okay, a couple Fridays ago, I met with Dr. Kagan at her office. I was able to walk the site with her and get a clear understanding of the building that she's purchased, what the plans are long-term. And since then, since she's become the building owner, she's gotten very involved with understanding some of the utilities, some of the electrical services, some minor repairs that have had to be done throughout the course of the project. That layout is going to include a lot of utility upgrades, utility moving where the footprint of the building is. So it's a pretty decent sized project for a smaller parcel in town. We talked about basically what the milestones would be in order to give her a pretty generous timeline in order to get the project built. And we're also taking into consideration from the time that her initial purchase was delayed a little bit due to COVID and other extenuating circumstances for her to get into the building and close it. We just felt it would be appropriate to extend the original resolution as submitted.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at all?
Yeah, it's just that I think.
Did you put your microphone forward, please? Make sure it's on.
I think it's on.
You can't hear you with that. You just gotta speak up.
No, it wasn't on. That might help. Okay, I think it's very commendable that she's willing to upgrade the utilities. I think it's in everybody's best interest, including the planets. And, it was a reasonable project to begin with, and it's even better.
Yep, and the only thing I'll add is, under the circumstances, I think it's warranted, and I support the extension. Any other questions or comments? Do you have any comments at all? Questions?
No, I don't think so. I think the milestones will be helpful.
Okay.
The infrastructure will be.
Can we have you come up to
Yeah.
the podium?
Just state your name, please. Yep.
Eileen Geegan. I was just saying that the infrastructure will be interesting. I think Mr. Darpino got to begin to get a taste of that.
Mhm.
Yep.
With 86-year-old buildings.
Great.
So.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, would you please call the roll? Mr. Henry?
Ms. Gold,
Aye.
Mr. Scrivby Tennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Ms. Shenfield,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Resolution's approved and the 2-year extension is granted, so,
Hey, thank
okay,
you
good
for your
luck.
help.
Okay, thank you.
Much appreciated.
Okay, that's it under new business tonight. So we have one discussion item. That discussion item is One Research Circle, GE Global Research Site Plan Application for the construction of a new 16,000 square foot building. And I'll, just turn it right over to Mr. DiArpino.
Mr. Chairman Walsh, and
Oh.
team, I'm planning on recusing myself from this topic. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Khan.
Okay. So since the last meeting, there have been a couple follow-up meetings with the Architectural Review Board. And then there were some comments that the CAC had previously submitted. So I think where we are currently is that the ARB had an initial meeting and then a follow-up video conference. There's been some updates to the design, and there was some feedback talking about matching some of the building characteristics and the architectural language that's there on the current buildings. Mr. Whalen has more information on the actual equipment and machinery that's going to go into the building, and they're basically designing that around the footprint that was approved, also with the height variance. I don't believe that we have updated elevations or floor plans. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right.
We're still working through some finalizing plans of the building itself, just because the nature of the research is and what the vessel they're going to put inside of it is changing so much that we're waiting for them to finalize their design so we can finalize the building.
Corey, can you just identify yourself for the record, please?
Oh, sorry, Corey Whalen from GE Research.
And then just a couple other things to add. There was always concern about the facades that do face any of the public entities or the street. Those we want you to take careful consideration on what those are going to look like, the colors that would be selected, and how that could harmonize best. And then there was a review of the current landscaping and proposed landscaping that would be incorporated as part of this project too.
Yeah, part of what we talked about with the Architectural Review Board was planting more trees along the bike path to kind of try and take away that view of the building. And also, in the latest design that we put together for the building, we had added windows that faced River Road, so that way if you could see it, it wasn't just a big steel structure sitting out there for everyone to see.
And I know Mr. Henry was involved in those ARB meetings. If there's anything you wanted to add to that.
No, I just would want maybe commend Corey. I thought we had a really positive and very good meeting with the ARB. So I think we're off to a great start.
I hope to have actual flyover rendering of the building in the next 2 weeks, so I can bring it back to you guys and you can see what we're looking at with the final design.
Yeah, just a couple of things. One of the open items, Mr. Whalen, was the building that's on the far side of the parking lot. We asked, what's the height of that building, just so we have perspective from the road. Did you get the opportunity to just get an approximation on that one?
I think it's 68 feet tall is what we have.
Just a,
I promised the architectural review board I would get pictures from where the new building would sit facing out towards the two buildings that are currently on campus. So I'll get that done tomorrow for them as well.
yeah, just give some perspective when you're looking. If we know how, we know that this one is closer and on the other side of the parking lot, but that
Right.
would help out. And the other thing we need to discuss with the board is whether or not this board feels a public hearing is required for this project or not. So that's kind of open for discussion. I know I have my own opinion, but I'd like to hear from the rest of the board, their thoughts on this.
Although, just as a note, the zoning board holds its own public hearing with a 200-foot mail-out radius. So it's the exact same radius that the planning board would do. And we did do that mail-out.
Right, and that was pretty much my opinion, is that the zoning board of appeals already had a public hearing with the mail out, and I believe there was no speakers or letters received.
No one commented for the GE project at the zoning board.
So my thought is that was, the height variance is the critical component when it comes to the public for this project. So if nobody was interested in the height variance, I personally don't see the need for a public hearing, but again, it's a board decision. So does anybody feel differently? Dave?
I do not.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as a no public hearing required, which will help, obviously, the process and the amount of work associated with public hearing. How about timeline, Mr. Whalen? I know you're waiting on things, but one of the things that happens to us sometimes is all of a sudden the information comes in and everybody's in a hurry. So, we still have to send this out to fire, police, county referral, any engineering. I know that the town engineers have been notified of the project so they could, help expedite it. I don't know if we've received any feedback at all at this point, or it's too early because we don't have any information from you guys, any details to have reviewed. So just be aware of that. Make sure we have some time to get the reviews done, okay?
Yeah, so right now our timeline looks like to hopefully have a site plan and final building documents to give to you guys, as I said, middle of next month. So you guys can look everything over and we can go from there. And what we learned this week, because of all of the supply chain issues throughout the world, is it's probably a 5 to 6 month lead time before we'll actually see the building itself show up. So our goal is to get as much foundation work and utility work done this year, building show up, and when it shows up, we'll start to stand it up. But more than likely, that'll bleed a little into 2022 before it's actually stood up and finished.
Yep. Okay.
Can I ask one question
Sure.
for Corey and for Dave? The building's entrance is oriented towards the surface parking lot north. Is that the portico and the door?
I guess, probably Corey could answer this. Not knowing what the newest updates are going to be, I'm not sure what that orientation is going to look like.
Okay.
I believe that would probably be the case, but the other thing is that you're going with a pre-manufactured metal building, correct?
Yep.
You're going to modify probably to add
Correct.
a portico entrance and maybe some fenestration or windows on specific facades. So I think they're going to take
Correct.
a generalized kit building that you could purchase, and then they're going to make some modifications to that, which will be engineered through that company.
That is exactly.
for GE.
Yep, that's exactly true.
So David, if I could just ask in your capacity in the architectural review board, if you have some sensitivity to the rear of the building that faces on to river. I know it's a long sight line, it's 700 feet, but having the rear of a building on a major thoroughfare is something to pay attention to. If you could obviously articulate it and make it look less than a rear,
Right,
that'd be great. So
yeah.
that's my request to you.
Yeah, I just from being able to drive by and just getting to the parking entrance and not being, I haven't physically been on the campus, but that distance, you're going to see probably the top 25 to 30% of that building where the tree line is. I'm guessing that it's going to be high. And so there will see some of that, whether there's a window or something that could be added. If that's a gable, I'm assuming it's going to stay as a shallow gable at this point, probably because that's what most engineered buildings are.
Yep. The goal is to put the windows on the south side of the building as high as we can, both for looks and to get as much sunlight into the building as we can for the people working inside.
Beautiful. Okay. All right, anybody from the board have anything else regarding this project? Mr. Whalen, you have anything for us?
No?
Okay. All right, well, I'll look forward for additional information from you, and you have a good evening then.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's it for discussion items tonight. We'll move right to reports. First up is the historical code adoption. Or did you want to speak about that at all? Or?
So I did receive comments from, I believe, Clark, and did anybody else on the board email me comments yet?
No, the only comment I had was just to make sure that it wasn't just a demolition of a home, that if it was a change in property that had historical significance, to make sure the wording included that was the only comment that I had.
Okay, and then the town board held the public hearing on it at the last town board meeting, and there were some comments, I believe all in favor, but with some suggestions for changing the language. So I think we'll probably draft in those changes. A lot of them are just textual. A couple of them, like from Dennis, I think were a little more substantial, but still in the spirit of what was at the public hearing. And then it would go on for adoption at the end of April.
Fantastic. Yeah, I watched the video of the meeting, and Dr. Brennan had some, more additional comments, like as you stated, to be incorporated. So
Yeah.
And those suggestions went beyond involving the demolition, wanted to place other restrictions. So
I think
I think that's a substantial change.
well, so the original iteration of the code prior to it going to the town board had a 90 to 120 day period where the historic committee and the developer could go back and forth to make their case. And in giving the town board permission to overrule the kind of the ruling of the historic committee, the timelines were shortened. I think the historic committee was given like 30 days to do their initial referral, and then 30 days referral to the town board, and then the town board would act. So the timeline got significantly shortened. And I think what he was saying is if you extend that timeline, and the building ends up being suitable for demolishing, they would still like additional time to be able to document anything of historic value within that building. So he just wanted to look at the timelines, I don't think change the timeline for review of like the town board or anything like that, but the timeline for the historical committee to be able to document those buildings. That was my understanding of the substance of that comment.
But there was a suggestion that it go beyond covering demolition to include any other.
Oh, substantial alteration.
And to me, that makes it very different from what the public hearing was held on. So I'm concerned whether there needs to be another round of public hearing.
Okay,
That would be
well,
a question for legal department.
yeah,
not me.
Rob and Elena can work through that one. I don't object to it going to another public hearing. The more input you have on things, the better. I just think the timeline on adopting that code, like we had said, we do want to get that in place, prior to big building permit demolition season. But, I would leave that in the good hands of the legal department if they want to call for another public hearing or not.
And I will note, prior to the moving of the Stanford Mansion, we actually required similar documentation of the building. Wasn't in the code, but we wanted it. We made it part of the resolution, and we got it.
Right. So the planning board has powers far and above, they have discretionary powers to ask for things like that. But building inspector, when it comes to pulling a building permit, can't deny a demolition permit without a historic preservation code. So that would be why you would be allowed to do that as a planning board.
Yeah. But I think documenting it is a great idea.
Yeah. because some of them you can't save, but there may still be like beams or something cool that you could take a picture of and then document that and, keep record of it or, I don't know.
I remember Bellevue
places.
Hospital, I think there was something along
Yeah.
those lines. Some of the artifacts from structural, or whatever, were kept and they were going to put them in a display. I haven't seen it because I haven't been down there, but in the lobby or something like that.
Yeah, going way back to when Dr. Jorgensen's family established it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And sometimes people buy those buildings and they don't even know. I mean, sometimes they don't care, but sometimes they just don't know. And, having a historical committee to be able to go in there and say, okay, like it has to go down, but maybe like, let's keep some of this stuff. It's very cool. Or reuse it.
I think folks in Schaefer homes tend to know and value that.
They're
Because
self-selecting.
There's an oddity in everyone I've heard about,
Yeah.
and they put up with it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And next was planning department updates on anything else that you want to update us on?
I don't have anything specific. Did you have anything that you wanted to add, Clark?
No, nothing big, just that we're still a little surprised about, we haven't seen the Rivers Led Senior Center, so to come back again. So we expect that possibly at the next meeting. And the Trinity Baptist Church project will probably be back as well.
Yeah, so I actually still haven't heard back from Larry, the guy that presents that project to us on Trinity Baptist Church. So
About
I'll
this?
let you guys know,
Okay.
but we may shift that meeting to later in the week and then
Right.
see who else can come.
Right, we're trying to coordinate a site walk just to see what, back there. One of the comments I had, Laura, I know that you invited quite a few people, including the full planning board. Do we have to worry about having a quorum when we do site walks at all, Mr. Hess? Do we have too many people show up, or is there any kind of public notice or anything like that?
So,
I think there's an open meeting requirement for that.
well, so I mean, I defer to you. I know at some of the trainings that I've been to, site walks, as long as you're not discussing businesses and opinions and votes and you're just asking clarifying questions, I don't think
Yeah.
it's subject to the open meetings law, but it's a careful thing that you have to be once you're over the quorum. I don't think by default it triggers the open meeting,
Yeah,
but
we're not saying that many people would show up, but if they were, just, one thing that, as long as we have a few planning board members there, that would be helpful. And we still don't have a project lead, so whoever shows up there, if they'd like to volunteer as project lead,
So we're not going to have to worry about the open meetings law for this.
everybody
site
take one
visit.
step back.
and I know in the past we have actually split the site walks just to be careful and safe, and maybe that was from your direction, so that's also fine. But I know, Patrick, you were gonna try and make it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in the past, we've done it, and we were cautioned
You have to be
not to
careful.
discuss opinions, just to observe the site, ask any relevant questions, and leave any discussion to an open meeting. So I think we're okay that way. I do have a question. If somebody can't make that, is it all right with them if we go walk on the property and get a better look?
Oh, I can ask him that. I know we do that sometimes too.
Because
Is-
it gets pushed off to a certain, like this week, I can't make it.
Okay. Yeah, I will. When he reaches back out to me, I'll let you guys know
Yeah,
on
maybe
that. Typically, they do say yes.
Yeah, maybe we just have to notify you, and you can send them an email or something that says, hey, tonight somebody's going to be walking around, just so you know, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Good.
In good weather, it'd be walking distance for me.
If you remember, try and wear your badge. If you remember, I think that's helpful if you're doing a
Badge?
site walk by yourself. Do you not have a badge yet?
No.
I'll get you and Nancy a badge.
Actually, it's a good time because the
I
ground's
used to
frozen
have
if it's
business
wet
cards.
back
I don't have
there.
them
Oh,
either.
yeah.
You don't have the
Or
little
calls.
badge that you can clip on.
There's a level badge.
But well, you guys all have your badges, right? Yeah.
I've got
Oh,
it.
you don't
It's a
have
don't
bit
have one,
dated, but
so-
I got one, yeah.
If you're making them.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't have a badge either, but, I don't really stand on for.
Yeah, Laura, I don't think I have a badge either. I think you just opened that one up.
Nobody has any stinking badges.
I have a badge, and whenever I go on a site, I use it because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to make any comments, but I'm always afraid of getting run off somebody's property.
Yeah, well,
Proper
that's-
authority to be at this meeting.
So that's why, if you can, I like for you guys to have that, because if you're doing a site walk and somebody comes up, it's got the logo on it and your picture.
And
I mean,
then-
it's not super fancy. It's just a little bit of
official.
comfort when you're on the.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You gotta
Well,
provide your own picture.
we are remiss in our badge issuing. Possibly, I would blame COVID, but I can't. So.
And that's kind of why I keep asking if it's okay with the applicant for us to walk on the property.
Well, I always ask them anyway, but once you get that permission, it's good if you have.
Yeah, I mean, no, someone could ask you, and you got to show them something.
Yeah. So let me.
Okay. All right, so that's it under reports, right? And then we'll discuss commission business. We'll start with Mr. DiArpino. Do you have anything first, David?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. McPartlin?
Well, I was just curious if Laura or Clark could provide any updates on the review that was done on the Crescent Road, Clifton Park Road intersection in connection with this not street
Upgrades.
upgrades.
Yep.
So, I mean, when we did the public outreach and we did our public hearing on that, we got a lot of comments and we finalized the plan that I think had the most consensus, which is ready to go. Nobody liked any of the mini roundabouts. And I think that the more parking on the Crescent Ave side with the smaller buffer was the one that everybody chose. So we do have the finalized plan, but I believe the cost estimate was something like $325,000 or something. It was beyond the budget of the town to undertake during the county's project. So because we didn't have the budget set aside for it and it was too big to be able to just tag on, which is what the hope was, I think we did kind of earmark it for, it's pretty close to being, I mean, it's not shovel ready, but it's attractive to grant writing because you have a plan and you've already done a public hearing and you do have a little bit of consensus on that. So we're keeping it in our back pocket. And also, I know Clark and I were trying to organize a meeting with Mr. Nicky to see if there's some like interim stuff that he can do with that space, you know, at his own developer cost, while we have this, you know, bigger plan for the future.
Great.
But it wasn't able to be tagged onto the Schenectady County project.
I think it's great that at least there's a concept now that you have consensus behind
Yes.
for when the funds can be procured.
Yeah, and I mean, the town spent a decent amount on that, right? So we've already invested in that concept. So, and we have all the documentation of it. So that should help too when we're going forward.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Does the town have a mitigation process in terms of projects that come before the board? If there's a traffic impact, then perhaps an amount of money is put aside from the developer to maybe fund these types of improvements. If just say the shopping center over here, when ShopRite came in and I wasn't as a part of that as maybe I would have liked to have been, but were there any kind of traffic impact items that maybe ShopRite put aside and said, okay, we realize there's going to be more traffic. We want to make sure the road is improved. Did the town ever require anything like that? Is that something that we've
Well,
ever
We
considered?
haven't done it recently, but I believe it has been done in the past. I
Yeah.
believe right here at Knott Street in Van Antwerp, there was a fund to put a potential traffic light there years ago. And I think based on the up-to-date traffic studies or just the way that the intersection was working, that I believe the funds were returned to the developers and that, you know, never occurred. So it's something that can be done, but we don't have anything that's active that I'm aware of right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, Clark and I talk about that a lot. It's typically done with a generic environmental impact statement, which the town of Colony has done for their traffic vehicle trips. So they have a pretty, you know, standard accepted way of calculating what the impacts are of those cars based on a wide environmental impact statement that they did, which allows for them to collect that mitigation money.
Mhm.
It's hard if you don't have something like that done, because you can't stand up to litigation as well. It becomes sort of a discretionary thing that the planning board's asking for.
Thank you.
And years ago on Balltown, where there's new housing units, there was a mitigation plan for both correcting the offset between that and the GE research
Oh.
road alignment, and also
Mhm.
potentially for a traffic light to go there. State DOT struck down the whole idea of a traffic light, but there was planning put in place for that, and there were some funds put in escrow, if I recall. I might be wrong on that. but
Yeah, I
I'm
think
pretty
that was
sure
a
there were.
specific developer.
Yeah, there wasn't actually an
Amber.
escrow set up for it, but it was a condition, I think, of this
Correct.
rezone, which made it very strong, I think.
Mhm.
So when there's a full traffic study that's done that shows those type of impacts on a large scale project, you can take mitigation stuff like that. It's just hard to do piecemeal without a general environmental impact statement.
And development on Console Road, we had a requirement also that they make some land available to decrease the curve. And then the neighbors didn't want it because they were afraid the speed would go up.
It does
So
happen.
we do try to look at those things. So it's a good question.
Where we run into it the most is with our utilities because our sewer system's maxed out. So you can't get a new connection into our sewer without showing that you're either not going to make it worse or you have to do upgrades to it.
Does it have to be an environmental impact statement? Can it be that if they're going into somewhere, and this is kind of maybe an off the subject topic, but if you see that they're developing on something where the sewer's maxed out, the water lines are maxed out or whatever, you have to improve those, or you have to give us something to connect our sidewalks, or something to put aside for us in a slush fund to tap into that when it's time for something like that. I may be reaching, but I just.
No, we've done that with pumping stations, right, Laura?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, I think what we typically see is that we have data and documentation that our system can't take it. And at that point, if we know that a connection is going to be made to a system that can't take it, it's easy. It's not easy, but we can say you have to upgrade this pump station. And it's kind of unfair to the sort of last guy to the game, right? Because a lot of people connected and didn't have to upgrade a pump station, but that's kind of the nature of the leftover land that's in Niskayuna. And I think theoretically, like if you were doing a traffic study and you had an intersection that was like a level C and you were taking it to a level F, you would very easily be able to say, you got to redo the intersection.
Right.
But like, it's hard to say for like a minor subdivision that's adding 3 lots and 3 vehicle trips to Balltown Road to be like, you guys are making it worse. You are incrementally making it worse, but it's very hard to take mitigation fees in that situation.
Got it. Thank you.
Excellent.
Actually, to build on Mr. McPartland's observation, if somebody like Mr. Nicky is interested in, taking that space at the end of Crescent and doing something seasonally, and you're pursuing a grant, you get to see if concept things may work during that time period before you actually are going for the grant and committing to a full design. They may find out that temporary seating out in that area is a great idea. They might find that it's a bad idea because it chokes down too much parking. So I think we're going to be the benefit of that after the county streetscape improvement project is executed. He may want to try something temporary for a couple months to see how it is. We'll get a lot of feedback from that.
Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, like if it's planters that can be moved and
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mr. McPartland, anything else?
No, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Khan?
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Scrubby Tennis?
Nothing.
Ms. Gold?
Only a question. Any hints there might be in-person training sometime soon?
I was having that conversation with Nancy today. I still have not seen any, but there's a couple ZBA members who are also really fond of in-person training because they kind of suffer from the webinars. So as soon as I see in person, I will pass it on to you guys.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, Ms. Gold. Ms. Shenfield
Nope, nothing for me.
and Ms. Strang, anything else?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, the only thing I'd like to do is welcome Mr. Hess back. Good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yeah, glad to have you, and I have nothing further. Anybody else? Anything?
So anybody who's missing a badge, could you email me a headshot that you would like put on your badge?
And that would be your own.
It's your own. Okay. I was holding myself back.
I can do it though. Thank you. Gotcha. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. McPartland, second.
Second.
Second by DRPino. All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none opposed, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.